Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today we are going to be going over a billion things. First, of course, Happy New Year everyone, it's finally 2023. With that being said, we do have the roadmap for the first half of Gems of War for 2023, as well as the 1.5 billion events that are going on this week, including the Monsterous Mess event, in which you see Scavenger is added to the game. But first, let's start with the roadmap. So this roadmap currently goes till the end of June, of course subject to change, and basically lays out what we can kind of expect going on in the very near future. This month we have a billion different events for Zhul'Kari, most of which trigger today, as well as the Lunar New Year event that will be happening a little bit later this month, which will be getting a rabbit pet and a few other things related to the Year of the Rabbit. February, we're going to be getting the first patch of the year. This one, based on its name, might finally be the treasure hunt rework. It could also potentially update some things in Underworld, like the treasures there and stuff like that. However, one of the main locations that uses the term treasure, of course, that isn't the Underworld, is a treasure hunt. So it could finally be the time, after like 5 or 6 years of them saying they'll do a treasure hunt rework, might finally be that treasure hunt rework. We're also getting a new campaign finally starting around then. In March, we'll be getting the first and maybe only new kingdom of the year so far, since they've been adding kingdoms again. They've only been doing one per year, but given that we're getting this one pretty early in the year, who knows, maybe we'll get another one a little bit later this year. And we'll also be having a kingdom pass going around with it, as well as a list of scales Legends Reborn. In April, we're going to be getting the 6.9 updates. Nice. In which the tricks and traps are added to the game. As far as what on earth this update is, I'm not really sure. Maybe Underworld rework, maybe some kind of new feature. Hard to really tell based on its name. But also going to be having a spring holiday event and a new campaign starting around that time. In May, we're going to be having an Adana rework, kind of like we just had the Zhul'Kari rework that we'll be going over in a moment, as quite a few things got reworked in Zhul'Kari as of, technically as of yesterday. They'll be going over all of it. It technically happened later yesterday, I'm not sure the exact time, but sometime yesterday it ended up occurring, which of course is now fully in effect now. But anyways, we'll be getting another one of those reworks, this time for Adana, which honestly is one that really needs it. Adana is a weird mix of humans and mechs, and while it does have a few good things like Tesla, Tina 9000, and the such, the most rest of the kingdom is pretty underwhelming and has very weird synergy with each other, since it's a mixed kingdom that just doesn't really synergize that well together. So we'll get to see exactly what they end up changing up to kind of make it work. Who knows, maybe we'll get another power gem, which, spoilers, they did for Zhul'Kari if you haven't already seen it. The new web gem, which we'll be going over in a second. But basically, we're just getting a bunch of Donna stuff in May. And then in June, as far as we currently know, we're getting some kind of summer holiday event, as well as a Pantvale Legends Reborn. So that's the main rundown of what we have. Of course, times are subject to change, but that is where we're currently at. So, next thing, Zhul'Kari. As some of you may have already seen as of yesterday, we have gotten a Zhul'Kari rework. I won't be going over absolutely everything here, as it can basically be summarized in a lot of things getting 2 new traits. The Spider Silk trait, which is a 25% chance to create a spider gem, which is basically a purple web gem at the start of every single turn, and Terror Pact, which ends up as having a 25% chance, I believe, for the Night Terror, which got buff nerfed for the second time. I'm not sure why they keep trying to buff this thing by nerfing it, but it's kind of strange. It has been strongest in its original form that it was, like way back when, like 7 or 8 years ago. Then it ends up getting reworked to be what it originally was, you know, for the longest amount of time. What it was prior to yesterday. And then it got reworked to this, which gives it like a little bit more damage, but at the cost of like 2 mana. It's really weird. But anyways, the most relevant things here are, actually if we go over to them real quick, if we go over to the tab of Zhul'Kari, probably the easiest way to end up showing this, rather than reading through all the text. So if we go click over to Zhul'Kari, main changes, actually let me do this by base rarity. So main changes that ended up occurring that are relevant. The most notable is probably Arc Proxy Evandra. Arc Proxy Evandra is now a 26 mana cost rather than 30. She was already a pretty good mythic, and to have a 4 lower mana cost makes her a lot more viable. One issue she had before with a 30 mana cost is it was just kind of too high. She's normally sitting on her mana anyways until she gets alignment, so having her at 26 definitely makes her a lot more usable. It also makes her a lot more usable in the main combo that's really good with her, and we'll be showing the team in a moment. We have to, or not in a moment, but at the end of this video, because we do have 10 teams to go over this video. Anyways, Arc Proxy Evandra synergizes really well with Lord of Slaughter. They have no mana overlap, and they both do a skull-related effect. One does Doom Skull, this one does Uber Doom Skull. So she'll be a lot better in that combination, because she had a lot of issues where she just wouldn't get enough mana in those situations. But now having a 4 lower mana cost will be pretty good for her. The next most relevant one is Zhul'Kari. While this is probably not enough to make him viable, it is a pretty interesting change, as he now creates 8 green gems and 4 web gems, 4 web basically being purple, but it also can web the enemy, as well as your own team, so you do have to be careful with that. And then it summons 1 to 3 giant spider instead of just 1. It is actually very similar to the boss version of him that guarantees summons 3 every single time, so kind of cool to see that the standard version of him now has a chance of at least summoning more of them. So he can kind of be a backup plan to end up winning off with. Unfortunately, he does not have Stealthy. I can't remember if they replaced it or if we just didn't have it, but I'm pretty sure they actually ended up replacing it. Let me double check here. Did they replace Stealthy? No, it was Demonic Pact before. They should really have given him Stealthy as well. Stealthy could have helped him a lot, having that huge of a summon combined with Stealthy. I guess maybe they concerned it would be a little bit too strong, but if they got rid of, like, Sturdy for Stealthy, that would have been pretty interesting to see exactly how that would have panned out. But yeah, they ended up giving him the Terror Pact, which doesn't really do much, and a little bit of a better ability that can also potentially extra turn while also doing a bunch of giant spiders. More often than not, I feel like you're just going to want to go Orb Weaver Hero class in most situations. However, it is a nice alternative to be able to have a giant spider summon if you don't want to go down the Orb Weaver class route. The next one that's pretty decent is Tome Spider. This is mostly relevant for that one faction where you have the Eldrazar, where you end up having the 100% chance of summoning this upon death. 100% chance to summon a Tome Spider on death. Tome Spider basically carries that entire delve, and now it'll be able to do so even better. It inflicts Web, Hunter's Mark, and Death Mark to the first enemy, and then deals some damage to them at a guaranteed chance, while also still having that, or having the new 25% chance for that Web Gem thing. So they basically just gave it a bunch of effects that are now guaranteed. Before, I believe it was chance, or based on like 13 plus on a board for some of it. But now it is completely guaranteed. Where are Tome Spider and all this list? So I want to check the exact thing. Yeah, spell will now always inflict Hunter's Mark. Before, I believe it was like 13 plus red. Now it'll always do it. And it is pretty relevant for damage pressure, particularly when you're doing a deep delve for that. Since the enemy will not have access to using Tome Spider, but you can have your own Tome Spider or your own thing that 100% chance summons Tome Spider, have that die, and then you have Tome Spider to run the entire delve with. So ends up making the delve quite a bit easier having that guaranteed. It does have a 2 higher mana cost to make up for it. However, that's perfectly fine. As you'll be able to get the guaranteed and not have to worry about any other condition. So it's a nice trade-off that makes it work. And aside from that, there was one other one, and a surprising one. This is actually 2 of them that kind of got a buff here. The next one is Giant Spider. The only thing that this got was one of its useless traits being replaced with Spider Silk. However, this is good because most of the things that got Spider Silk got their link replaced. For example, Night Spider used to have Purple Link, now has Spider Silk. However, one interesting thing about Giant Spider is it actually maintained the +1 purple while also having the trait. So this is very nice for its viability. It was a slightly underwhelming converter, but now, of course, this makes Orb Weaver a lot stronger, makes Zhul'Kari a lot better. So interesting to see exactly how this pans out. Definitely will make a lot more Orb Weavers around, as now you'll also be able to get even more passive purple on top of that. So it's a nice change. It's not a huge buff, but out of any single thing that got the Spider Silk, I do feel like Giant Spider is one of the biggest beneficiaries of it. And of course, we have the good old Night Spider. So Night Spider kind of got nerfed and buffed simultaneously. Hard to really tell. His looping capability has gone down, but his capability of being ultra annoying has gone substantially up. So the main thing that ended up changing here is all the purple gems that it used to create are now web gems. This, in theory, is good, but also bad. There's 2 reasons why this is bad. Web gems can end up replacing out other purples, meaning that you'll actually have a slightly lower chance of landing an extra turn now compared to before. The other thing that could be slightly bad is, of course, web works both ways. So you can web the enemy, but the enemy can also web you. So if you have other things on your team that don't want to be webbed, this could potentially be problematic, especially since one of the main synergies is Mother of Darkness, and Mother of Darkness does not want to be webbed. So in that way, it could backfire. However, it could also be very beneficial if you're up against a team that is using a lot of magic, and you happen to end your loop. Well, they're all going to be webbed, assuming they don't have immunity. Or you could even put on something on your team to curse them to make sure they truly will end up getting webbed. So you have a lot of options for it still. It's still very viable, though I would say it's a bit of a nerf, though not much. It is still going to be a very, very strong option, and definitely going to be even more annoying to deal with now that it will have the web spam on top of its very high amount of mana accumulation. The 25% chance to create a web gem, a lot worse than the link it had before. However, it can still come in for value, obviously, help get your mana going, and in some situations might actually help out more effectively, because if it is spawning it, that's the 1 mana you needed anyway, so it might help you get the mana you need better than the link would have. though Giant Spider does end up doing that a little bit better compared to how it did, but it is still a way better mana accumulator if you're going to put one single one on your team to use a Night Spider, assuming you're going, of course, a pure rogue team. Anyways, that's basically all the changes with Zhul'Kari. I guess one other one maybe worth mentioning is Shadowblade. Shadowblade used to, if he had 13 plus purples on the board, gain full mana back. Now it is better to use at a lower mana, but worse to use at the range where he kind of wanted to be at before. So now he has a 6% chance to gain all of his mana back per purple gem on the board. So if there's something like 10 purple, he will have a 60% chance. If there's something like 13 purple, which is the threshold for what he would have a 100% chance for before, he would end up having a 78% chance now. This, of course, is much lower, so at that 13, 14, 15 range or so, he's actually worse than he was before. However, he is now better at basically every other number. Well, I guess for 16 plus it wouldn't really matter as much, but for everything like 12, 11, 10, all that kind of stuff, before he would have a 0% chance to end up getting full mana, but now he'll have some amount of percent. The only problem with this is generally if you're going to have a lot of purple on the board, it is going to be around that 13, 14, 15-ish area, which before would have been 100%, which is now slightly less than 100. So in some situations it's going to be worse, in some situations it's going to be better. Not really a nerf, not really a buff, it just makes him a little bit more usable in a sense. For the most part, obviously there's much better true damagers later in the game. Well, this might help for two things, if nothing else, if you're picking him up earlier in the game, as well as, of course, Arena. This helps him out a lot in Arena. You probably almost always want to draft him in Arena now, as Arena is, unless you have a purple spammer, which you're unlikely to draft, you're likely only going to have like 8 to 11-ish purple on the board anyways, every single turn, so now he'll have pretty much over a 50% chance he'll gain his mana back in most of those situations, so a little bit stronger there, though, oh no, it's not really a buff, it's not really a nerf, it just makes him a little bit more usable. And that's pretty much everything as far as Zhul'Kari is concerned. Oddly enough, they did not touch Arachnine Weaver, and they did not touch Web Spinner. Two things that are notoriously broken beyond belief from this kingdom. So interesting to see that. No nerfs, really, for the most part, other than Ancient Horror, or whatever that thing is, Night Terror, being buff nerfed for the second time now. It just can't get a break. They just don't want that troop to be viable for whatever reason. I don't understand why. But anyways, that's the full rundown on that. So, next thing to go over. Let's start going over the normal event stuff before this video is an hour long. There's just a lot of things going on this week. So, let's start with this. The Monsterous Mess. Not to be confused with the current state of the game. In which the Sea Scavenger is added to the game. So, this comes in with red-blue arcanes if you need to go stock up on that. It's not too bad, it's not too good. It has mana link, so you can kind of use it for like Thursday class events and maybe incorporate it into the world event this week if you really want to, especially if you don't have that many other options. But it deals some damage to an enemy, last enemy, with a 20% chance to devour them and submerge it itself. Overall, pretty average, nothing really too special here, but it has mana link, so it can kind of be used for that ever so occasionally. If you're in an event where you're locked out of other stuff, it might occasionally get used. Otherwise, if you have better options, you probably don't want to end up touching this thing, as you'd be better off in a lot of situations with like a Megavore if you're under like Merfolk, or the Piskia if you want like similar coloration while still having like the same category. So for the most part, it's not going to get much usage if you have better options, but could be a nice little filler otherwise. Next up, we have, of course, a event key drop table for Merlantis, given that this is a Merlantis event. Do keep in mind, despite all the Zhul'Kari things happening this week, which we'll be getting to some of the other ones that are also happening, but despite all the Zhul'Kari things happening this week, it is not a Zhul'Kari drop table, so don't open event keys thinking it is Zhul'Kari. It is specifically Merlantis. With that being said, here's everything that is in a drop table. If we go click over to Merlantis over here, we can end up seeing the whole Merlantis tab, do it by base rarity, and we can end up seeing everything here. So as I was mentioning earlier, Piscia's here. As far as what's not in the drop table, all 5 troops from Sea of Sorrows is not in the drop table, because of course we also got to the Clam Lasher not too long ago. And aside from that, I think that's it. Let me just double check. That does seem to be the only 5 not in drop table. So yeah, as long as it's not from Sea of Sorrows, it is available in the event key drop table this week. So main things of note is probably Aquaticus. Aquaticus is, well, Piscia as well. But Aquaticus is actually getting a Synergy Mythic this Friday. So on top of everything else happening this week, we are, of course, getting a new Mythic on Friday, as it is the first Friday of the month. So, you know, we're going to be getting into the Mythic. And that Mythic has really, really good synergy with Aquaticus. And for that reason, you will probably want to potentially end up picking this up, as you're likely to use both of them together into a team. So Aquaticus, while not used too much in the current state of the game, is going to get a really much needed synergy troop this Friday. So a little bit more enticing to end up picking it up. And even if you miss, the other 2 aren't bad. Undying can somewhat be used as a blue Guild War counter, and guess what we have this week? Guild Wars, so that's a thing. And Piscia, while pretty inconsistent, can do a lot of value when it works correctly. It destroys all green, and then it creates blue equal to the destroyed amount. Keep in mind that it is destroy green, so you do accumulate all that mana. You'll get enough blues that you'll probably fill this thing right back up, and you have a bunch of Devour chances. Biggest thing that's annoying about this is how luck dependent its 30% Devours are. Though, of course, you could double Devour and get super lucky, kill out half their team and have a billion stats. Or you can get super unlucky and cast them like 5 times and get 0 Devours, especially if they have some immunes on their team. So overall, it could be really hit or miss. It's generally used if you need just like a lot of blue mana, can kind of be incorporated to one of the Guild War days in that regard, but it's really high risk, high reward. So it's very rarely used unless you just need a huge pinch of value in a given situation. You wouldn't really want to do it for any kind of consistent farming team, like you probably don't want to use on Explore 12 or something like that. You'd want something with a bit higher consistency. And of course, Undyne could just be used on a blue Guild War defend team if you so choose, or there are other ways to build a blue defend team. Aside from that, nothing really too enticing from this kingdom. Most of the stuff is just low rarity stuff that you can easily obtain anyways, if it's even remotely viable at all to begin with. And for the most part, it's mostly just the mythics that are pretty enticing from this place. More so than just about any other thing. So, event key drop table is basically if you're looking to get any of the mythics. Otherwise, if you're looking for Kingdom Stars, otherwise you could pretty much just end up skipping on it, as most of the lower rarity stuff isn't too enticing other than just for getting some kingdom levels onto the kingdom. Anyways, where should we go next? How about Guild Wars? So, we do have, or not Guild Wars, but the World Event. So, World Event is a bit weird. I think it's the first time it's been set up like this, but you will have 2 choices every single time. And basically, the 2 choices that you want to take every single time, it is easiest just to show them. And it is this 3 right here. You want to be taking on the first set, you always want to take the Carabids. On the second set, you always want to take the Skyla. And on the final set, you always want to take the Megavore, assuming they are visible in the current battle sequence. You will end up getting more for taking the same battles over and over again. But these are the ones that end up giving more overall, so they're the ones that you end up wanting to try to prioritize. So basically, you're going to have 2 options. Sometimes they'll be the same, sometimes they'll not. But assuming that they are different, you do want to prioritize taking these 3 as they will score you a higher amount of points. There is a weird situation where if you're getting a lot of a given one, you might want to start taking that one more. But for the most part, assuming that it's even on both, as far as your RNG, you probably just want to be sticking with the higher 3 values, as every single matchup will be this one matched with that one, the second one matched with the 5th one, and this third one here matched with that 6th one. So ideally, if you see any of these 3, they're the one that you want to take every single time, and basically just prioritize those 3 then. It's a bit of a weird event, a bit different than any other one that we've really had up to this point, but that's basically all you have to do. Just take the 3 higher value ones, and you'll have a 1-to-1 matchup every single time. And ideally, it'll just keep spawning that one for you so that you can end up getting more points. Definitely going to be a very luck-based event this time around. But of course, if you're just buying up to tier 2 just to get points for your guild, won't really end up mattering too much, as that should hopefully be plenty enough points regardless of how the RNG ends up rolling. The leaderboard might be a little bit weird this week, though it seems there's already multi-way ties. So that didn't take long. Anyway, so next event. So we do have Guild Wars this week on the many ridiculously long list of events going on. With one pretty noteworthy thing that we'll be mentioning in a moment being Brown Guild War tomorrow. This is only applicable to PC Mobile, but this is kind of relevant due to something in the Kingdom Pass that we'll get to in a moment. As far as Guild Wars, the same as always. I wish they would add like some kind of special rule set so we could change up the defend teams or the offense teams. But of course, it's the same every single time, so just set up whatever defend teams you want. Same offense teams you want, just make sure on defend that all of them are unique, so you get the full 12,000 points. As long as it says 12,000, you're getting the full amount of points there for your defend teams. And offensively, just make sure that every single one is corresponding to the color day. So for like tomorrow on PC Mobile, you want to make sure you have a pure brown team offensively so that you do not get penalized. You're allowed to use repeats on your offense team, but you're not allowed to use repeats anywhere across any of your defend teams. However, your defend teams can be any color you want, whereas your offense teams have to correspond to whatever the color is. So on Brown Guild War, 4 browns, Purple Guild War, 4 purple, so on and so forth. Same Guild Wars as it's always been. Anyways, next order of business. We end up having ourselves the... Okay, where should we go next? Let's go to the 2 special Zhul'Kari events. So we have a Legends Reborn going on. This Legends Reborn is for Zhul'Kari, of course, the quest line that we get to replay through. We end up getting a pet for that. Basically, there's 4 new pets. We're getting a pet for that, which actually, which one does that bonus again? This one bonus is Tyree. Tyree's not too bad, though it doesn't gain much of a benefit from 5 to all stats. The next one is Horrifying Spider, which ends up giving it to Spider Queen, which did get reworked slightly, however, is still kind of useless. So that one's not really that relevant either. Next one is Web Spinner, which is definitely relevant. Oh gosh. They actually gave one to Web Spinner. Okay, I didn't even notice that until now. I know which one this one already is. But yeah, they actually gave it to Web Spinner. So yeah, that's a huge buff. Web Spinner already kind of insane with how much damage it can end up doing, not only off its cast, but of course off of its skull damage. So having 5 to all stats not only makes it tankier, so it will end up dying as easily, but it'll also make every single way that it does damage increase, because it uses all 4 of its stats pretty well. It is one troop that definitely likes having more of every single stats, and guess what this does? It raises all of its stats by 5, so be interesting to see how that pans out, especially with Arachne Weaver summoning it, stuff like that. And lastly here, we have Yevandra. So our proxy Yevandra not only got a 4 lower mana cost buff, but will also get 5 to all stats at some point. Of course, so you probably don't want to buy that deep, as it is way too expensive, but you will be able to get this at a later point. Oddly enough, I have not gotten the previous one yet, though I believe it is in the drop table. I think I've just gotten unlucky on it. But similar to the last ones, they should be available like about 6-ish weeks or so after the fact, and then you'll be able to find them like 4 to 6 weeks after the fact. And you'll be able to find them in the pet drop table, though of course you can get very unlucky with the pet drop table and go months upon months without finding it. Though of course whenever Vault events roll around, and they might be doing a Vault event compensation due to the errors that they end up having around Christmas, you know, all the banning that was falsely happening and everything. So we might be getting a special extra Vault event soon, hopefully. And if they do so, of course, that'll be a time to potentially end up getting it, as you'll be able to get a lot of pet gnomes for your guild, and potentially end up finding the past one, the one that ended up doing it for Infernus. And this one will be available in about 4 to 6 weeks after this event ends. You'll also be able to find it in the pet drop table. Anyways, next order of business, we also got a Kingdom Pass corresponding to Zhul'Kari. So there is one pretty interesting thing here, which is oddly enough probably the strongest thing out of any of them, and it's the first one you kind of get. And that is the Spider Throne. So it has a convert brown gems to web, which if that was the only thing it did, you know, 12 mana cost doing that, it'd be a pretty underwhelming troop. However, they gave it Empower. They actually gave it Empower. So this is a very strong anti-brown Guild War Day option. And you know what we have tomorrow, at least for PC Mobile? Brown Guild War, which means if you want to use this thing for tomorrow's Guild War to have it set on Defend, you would have to set it on your Defend team today. For you to be able to set it on your Defend team today, you would have to buy the $8 pass and spend 200 gems. You would have to earn your rewards for the daily 10 crowns, farm those 10 crowns, and then you'll be at tier 3. And then you have to spend 200 gems to then go and get it and have your Spider Throne so that you can set it on Defend team for tomorrow. At least applicable to PC Mobile. On consoles, you might not have to do that. If you wanted to do the same for free-to-play, you would have to spend 4,200 gems to be able to get one copy of it, then use 2 small blues or a major blue on it, and then have your spider ready to go, or the Spider Throne, to have that ready to go for Guild Wars. So either way, it is kind of expensive to end up getting. So I'd probably just try not to use it for Guild War. Like, it's probably not even that strong overall, like compared to just using other converts, brown to red or something similar. So probably not really that needed for this Guild War. However, it is kind of annoying to try to end up using it, at least on PC Mobile, for this Guild War due to it kind of being locked out until literally the day after. So that's kind of unfortunate. I'm not sure if they intended that or not, but that is the way that it ended up falling down, which is not ideal. But anyways, that's one of the actually strongest things that you end up getting in the past. Of course, you still end up getting 3 of the books. We do have a repeat of pet again, though oddly enough, I don't have this pet max, so I'll actually be able to get some value there since able to get those last few copies. We do have a few other troops coming in, though honestly, most of them are just kind of useless. Same as a legend. I'm not sure why they've been making the legend so bad, but they have been kind of bad. You do still get some Imperials as well as deed books, which is nice. Also, of the weapons, the one on the paid side is actually better this time. The last time the free side one was better. This time the paid side one is better. Overall, I don't feel like any of the weapons are that worth it. However, this one does seem slightly more viable. Ends up creating 6 purple gems, or sorry, 6 purple web gems. Specifically just web gems, but you know, they count as purple, and then gains an extra turn. So you will have auto extra turn on that. Auto extra turn weapons are generally good. However, this is getting a pretty minuscule amount of value, and there are already way better ways to web within the game, especially with all the changes that just happened yesterday that we just went over with the Zhul'Kari changes. So there'd be almost no situation where you would necessarily want to run this as your hero option. So for the most part, you'd probably rather just have like Life and Death with Orb Weaver or something similar to be able to have other things offsetting your web mechanic. So for the most part, I don't really foresee this getting used much, but it does seem like the slightly better one. It just doesn't seem like it's creating enough purple gems. It feels like it should be closer to like 8 or 10, especially since it doesn't feed back into itself. Aside from that, of course, we do have a Terror card that we'll end up getting all the way near the end. This one right over here. Unfortunately, Terror card's pretty bad. Just webs an enemy with a chance to extra turn based on green. and just gives a bunch of life, which of course life doesn't really do too much in most situations. And aside from that, we do have 2 other things down all the way at the bottom. On the free side, you get this weapon. Ends up dealing some damage to an enemy, boosted by all webbed and poisoned enemies at a 3 times boost ratio. That does double stack. So if something is both webbed and poisoned, it will stack and give you 6 damage for that specific unit, for a total of 24 potential extra damage. And it also webs and poisons whatever you target. For the most part, nothing really too special. Just like a damage poke that ends up applying some stats effect. And for the most part, just isn't really worth using. And as far as the legend, pretty similar. It has a very weird ability that I don't quite understand why it's so bad. I'm still trying to comprehend this thing's ability. It is a 16 mana cost that either eliminates 4 magic, or drains 4 mana, or steals a bunch of life from an enemy boosted by web gems. This could all be and I'm still thinking it would be useless. If it did eliminate 4 magic and drain 4 mana and steal that much life, I'm pretty sure it's still not worth using. There is a chance that this boost ratio is referring to all 3 of these, in which case, I guess that's a little better, though not much. But if this boost ratio right here is only mentioning the life, and not mentioning how much magic it steals or the mana it steals, that seems kind of bad. And even if it was, that's still not that good, because that means at max, if the entire enemy team was webbed, that means you'd be able to, assuming it even works like that, it might not, it would end up stealing 12 magic, which is basically 0, drain 12 mana, which for 16 mana cost is literally you losing more mana, or steal a bunch of life from an enemy. So I'm not sure why this thing is so absurdly weak. And the only thing it has to benefit from is creating 1 web gem at the start of every single turn, but there are already better things that can end up mana accumulating in that, like Rogue Spider, or Night Spider, I mean. So yeah, it's a really bad legend. The worst one we've gotten. Like, I thought the last one was bad. They're just trying to top it even more. I don't quite understand this thing's ability. Because even if it did absolutely everything and did boost ratio on absolutely everything, I think it would still be bad. Because 16 mana cost for a 12 magic steal, a 12 mana drain, and a like middle ground like life steal thing, that's not good. That is still not good. And it doesn't even get to apply web or anything. Well, I guess it kind of does on its final trait, but still, I don't know. It's just really bad. For the most part, similar to the Broken Spire, whenever we end up getting a kingdom pass like this for an already existing kingdom, it's definitely a lot less value. But it still has like the deed books and stuff like that. And it does have that very strong Empower troop, which oddly enough is like the whole value of this pass is like having this thing early. Just because it's always good having another Empower Converter. Even as 50% score reduction, they made this thing insanely strong. It also has a lot of life. It actually has a 0 armor and all into life. So it's really bulky to not die to true damage, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, that's basically the entire thing of what's in the pass. From like a new thing perspective that's actually viable, it's pretty much just the Empower Troop, as everything else is pretty much not really going to be used, except very situationally. Anyways, of course, you can get 10 crowns per day simply just by quick killing in Explore. So if we go to, like, let's say, like, Center Mirage, you can use, like, Quick Kill Dust Devil, you can use Quick Kill Ruane, doesn't really matter. And you just keep doing this until you end up finding one of these things spawning. Of course, as I want to show it, we're probably not going to get a spawn here. We'll do, like, 2 battles. If we don't see one, we'll just call it. Oh, that's really funny. I actually have a spider event right now. Oh, that's really funny. We have a random spider going on right now, which is actually the same exact reward that we get from the current Kingdom Pass. Yeah, we're just not going to get that right now, but that's really funny. So yeah, this is the same guy. He ends up giving a Zhul'Kari bonus. You can end up getting it in pass, or you can, just randomly RNG find him, as you've been able to for quite some time now. But it's kind of funny that he just popped up right there. Anyways, in other news, other things that we have going on this week, you can still spend the Crinkle Mist currencies. While you cannot do any battles or anything else, any currency that you still have remaining, you can end up spending on any of your rewards. If you haven't yet, of course, if you still have the points for it, you'd ideally want to get 1 Winter Armor, 1 Chris Crinkle, 6 of the bag, 5 to get the first one max, and then 1 copy to end up getting the golden bag. And if you have some spares or still want to get the achievement, the Power Orb once. And that's pretty much all the good rewards. If you still have some spares, putting into pet food's not too bad a value. And aside from that, just wherever else you can kind of dump the points, I guess. As that's like the last remaining one if you had like a little bit of extra spares going on there. Like, I wish it was like something to use like 50 on, but of course, any points that you don't use by the end of this week does get completely eliminated. So if you do still have some points laying around, do make sure to go and use it before the end of the week. Aside from that, this Tuesday we have a faction event going on for Sea of Sorrows. Which overall should be a pretty easy one. Has a really heavy true damage option. Wednesday, we're getting a pet for... I actually don't remember, but you can see the icon in-game. You completely forget there's so many things going on. Thursday, we have a Tide Color class event. Tide Color, interesting Submerge one. Is kind of like inverse Frost Mage in that Frost Mage is better at freezing, but has like a low amount of Submerge. This has like a low amount of freeze, but a high amount of Submerge, so it's kind of like inverse Frost Mage. Overall, it's a lot weaker than Frost Mage. Very situational unless you're using a really Submerge heavy team. Like, unless you're using like a 4 times Submerge, 4 times Merlantis team, you're very rarely going to be using this compared to Corsair with +3 blue, or Frost Mage just with overall better viability. So it's a very situational hero class that very rarely ever gets usage, though there are some very niche teams, mostly 4 times Merfolk teams, that do end up incorporating it into the build. And this Friday, as you could already see in game, we do have a Bounty Hunter, which of course will be bringing in a new Bounty Hunter troop. This Friday, we're also going to be getting a new Mythic on top of everything else, if we didn't already have a billion other things going on. But there's a lot of things going on. Anyways, Soulforge. So, as far as Soulforge is concerned, there are some good things to get, most notably as far as Legends or Mythics are concerned. We have access to Ubestet. Ubestet, of course, Rope Dart into Ubestet, into Rope Dart into Ubestet again. Really good combination. It can end up winning a battle in 2 damaging casts, or technically 4, I guess, since you've set up with Rope Dart, but you know, it goes very quick. It's very niche and situational as far as when you bring that out. However, it is definitely worth considering, as it is still decently strong, and a combination that you can end up using on higher leveled content to end up killing them pretty quickly. Aside from that, we do have access to... Actually, do we have any good weapons? I actually don't think I double-checked. We do not have any good weapons. Weapons are pretty ignorable unless you're looking for completionist stuff. But yeah, that just looks like... Oh, keep in mind, a Doomed Dirk is kind of hiding here. I believe this is the first time we've ever been able to get it out of the events that end up happening. So if you didn't end up getting it from the event, I believe this actually is the first time it's available specifically only in Soulforge, whereas last time it was in both Soulforge and available from the blue Tower of Doom event. But aside from that, it's a pretty useless weapon, so not really worth getting. But yeah, just completionist stuff. Nothing really worth really having your hands on. It's just stuff you want to get just to have more weapons for the kingdom, to end up filling out kingdom stars. As Zhul'Kari does end up reaching... that's a Merlantis weapon. But, yeah, that would be a Merlantis star. Sorry. There's the overlap on that. But, yeah, sorry. Oh, that weapon is from Merlantis, so it ended up helping the Merlantis star, which actually I didn't claim. And that's why I wanted to check. The level that Merlantis ended up reaching this week, which is 23 star. So, that's pretty nice. Got another star there. Unfortunately, can't go any deeper than that. But you know what can, which I am mentioning with Zhul'Kari, is this. So, currently, it is at power level 21. However, of course, this can go quite a bit higher now. And the exact amount we can actually end up seeing based on how many more troops there are. If we go click on, how about just unowned? There were 4 new troops that were added in the pass, meaning that that should be, what, a 25 star then? So if you got absolutely everything from the pass near the end of it, that will be for 25 stars Zhul'Kari, which is, what, another 2,000 gold per day, among the other little tributes here and there. So you'll be able to get that bonus by the end of the, assuming you have all the reward things, or, you know, but have the paid side, you'd be able to get that all the way to, once you get to 50 tier. So you would be able to get those extra stars potentially for Zhul'Kari by the end of the event. Anyways, aside from that, let's go over now a billion teams. So let's start from the top. Going all the way from the World event, we have ourselves a... Oh wait, did I never make the second World event team? Oh, that's funny. I knew I forgot one team. Well, let's go make it right now. So... if we go check on the Servant of the Sea... I knew there was one team I forgot. Literally the very first one. So, of course, we can end up seeing the metal as spells, as it normally is. We can end up seeing what the restriction is. It is Merfolk. I made the cheap team, but you know what I forgot? The more expensive team. So, of course, first things first. Well, we want one at any given team. We want a good mana accumulator. First thing we could check is Empower. Are there any Empowers? No. So next best bet is check the best Exploder. I already know what that is. It's Azura. So we're going to go down the Azura route. There are a few other options we can end up doing. We can go down like a Mervarox and kind of go down create a bunch of blues. Though this is boosted by Submerge allies. And one weird thing with Submerge is you cannot boost ratio off yourself. I mean, the most it can ever get is a 15 boost ratio there. So that is one way we could end up going, though we can also go down the hero route. For this, we end up having hero accessing every single weapon. So we can end up going for one of those. So one thing we can actually check is this is actually available in Soulforge, and maybe worth getting, I guess, getting this to kind of incorporate into a team. So we can end up going down the Iron Wave route. With that being said, might as well go down to Piskia. This, of course, will be a little bit for the deeper end. We could end up going for the AoE route. AoE is pretty nice. You might want to incorporate hero weapon into that and go like Dawnbringer. At that point, I feel like it's going to be a little bit too similar to one of the other teams we'll be showing. So we'll go down a little bit more of a Piscia route here for like a little bit more of a deeper end. And then we kind of just want one more thing to kind of hold down the line. We do want that to be moved up by 1. We are going to want to change our class here to Tide Color. Hey, finally give some Tide Color some usage. Does also cover most of the event stuff, as I'm pretty sure we'll also have an objective to use a pure team like this, as well as, using the hero class itself, while also counting as 4 times Merfolk. But anyways, we do want a +1 for the weapon, so we obviously want to put that into red since we're going to be overlapping it. Then we probably want to put the other one into blue, as we're going to have a billion blues. And for now, we can just kind of go with a red-blue banner, though we might end up incorporating into +2 blue, +1 red, which I think we actually are going to go down that route because we're going to be denying green anyways. And since we are going to still be destroying it, we probably want to be using one thing that can end up utilizing it. One thing that is kind of good here is Nimue, so we can kind of go down that route if we really want to for like a little bit of skull pressure. But since we don't really get the bonus, we might just want to go for a little bit of a damage source, maybe something that can end up cleaning up a little bit. One of those things that can kind of end up doing that is Undyne if we want to end up going down that route. I'm trying to see if we have any kind of mana accumulator. Shocktopus kind of is, kind of isn't, that we can kind of incorporate into that. Nimue does do the red to purple, which actually feeds us pretty well. We can double check what we're creating here. We are going to be creating blue and brown. So we could potentially have something that uses the excess brown, so like a brown-green then. The problem is Hammerclaw is more of a tank and not necessarily something we're looking for. A little bit of splash damage, also not quite what we're looking for, though there is an AoE here, so we can end up going down that route. We can even incorporate the team to be Piscia as the backup plan now, and now use the Leviathan as our main potential AoE spammer initially, and then kind of revamp it into Piscia if we need some cleanup. So there we go. There's the team. We have a Dispel too, so in case they end up getting submerged, we'll be able to go and dispel them and still have our AoE, which is pretty important. I actually have a Dispeller on the other team as well. We end up using it for Azura, so in this case we have double Dispel. And this is mostly just to make sure in case they get submerged or anything, as it is a little bit AoE based. Still have the Piscia in the back, the mines to the banner, and we're good to go. And that is now the team. There we go. So that's how you build a team. And let's put that into the little event thing. And now let's go show the other ones. Now the other ones are built. So next one, for the low-level ward event, you probably already saw it. We have the Black Manacle, Azura, Shocktopus, and Merline. Azura for the Dispel in case they submerge up. Black Manacle for the AoE support since spell damage just absolutely destroys it. Shocktopus can also pseudo AoE while still doing a little bit of mana accumulation. And Merline's here for silence in case you need it for support, and also because it just covers red, so you cover every color. Next up, we have ourselves a Guards Avatar team. It is a brown-blue restriction for the faction events going on tomorrow. So when you end up doing Sea of Sorrows, you can end up doing just with a standard Guards Avatar team. You do have access to Rowain. You can still end up running Mirage Queen into Rowain, though you don't have as good of a mana accumulator this time around. So it will be a little bit clunkier, though you can still go down the Rowain route if you so choose. But otherwise, if you happen to have it, just a standard Guards Avatar to Surquan and Hadley will be perfectly fine. Next team we have here is a little bit deeper. Pretty just Hiking Iron gets Zul'Goth kind of standard team. A little bit weirder of a build just because you have to work with the mana accumulators you have. You can end up going down like the Marilith route if you wanted to or something similar. Oh, actually, never mind. You can't use Marilith for this because of brown-blue. But yeah, Angry Mob ends up working out pretty good. If you want to run any other alternative, you can. But in this case, we're using Essence of Evil for Disable. We're actually using it as a tank this time around. Though, of course, alternatively, if you want a little bit of a rushier build, you can run Hiking Iron Gut in first. Though it is a little bit riskier, but it does win quicker. But we're going a little bit of a safer route with this one, and Angry Mob is just as their primary mana accumulator, and just a Hiking Iron Gut Zul'Goth combo holding it down. Next, we have Pure Faction for the place. There are 2 different ways to run this Hammerclaw into 3 Deep Kings, or this build, which is Hammerclaw, Sea Witch, and Double Deep King. It's mostly just for more coverage. Hammerclaw is a super tanky, has 50% score reduction, has a bunch of life gain. You only want to cast this when it's about to die. You don't want to keep spamming this as his ability is pretty bad. You only want to basically cast him to get him off of Death's Door and keep him from dying. This one, we have a bunch of blue and brown mana accumulation, as well as with the Submerge, and also ends up giving a rage and a bunch of life to an ally. For the most part, you're mostly doing this to also sustain, which is one of the reasons why you don't really want to cast Hammerclaw, as you can already do it with this ability, while also getting a bunch of mana accumulation that you need, both blue and brown. And guess where all that blue and brown is going, since you're not casting your Hammerclaw unless you absolutely have to, is all going into Deep King, and that Deep King will just hit with a bunch of true damage, and that's the main premise of this build, is you just keep casting Deep King until you win. You can run triple Deep King, you can even run quad Deep King, though you normally want that little bit of support up front. Have the Hammerclaw tank, and if you want, you can run the Sea Witch, or just completely drop the Sea Witch and just go straight into getting as much blue as you can, just spamming Deep King until you win. That's pretty much the whole premise, is just keep using Deep King until you win. Next, we have the Tide Color class event. This is happening on Thursday. It's basically a standard Dawnbringer build. You can run any other AoE you wish. Dawnbringer, there's quite a few things you can end up synergizing with. Anything with Mana Link, like the new troop that just came out this week, you can end up doing it. We just did it with a bunch of Exoddles for a little bit of mana accumulation. We also have this thing here that can end up doing a bunch of blue, which can feed back into Dawnbringer, which can then go kill everything again. So however you want to run it, it's basically just running around an AoE weapon and a bunch of things behind it to go feed that AoE weapon, as is pretty much every class event when you're trying to claim the 25 gems for free, as it's not worth actually doing the event. For the Friday event, of course, we do not have the 4th troop available, but is standard Bounty Hunter. Use Ogrish, Tagraki Warrior, Corpse Mirror, and the new Bounty Troop. The new Bounty Troop will actually be able to feed you a lot of yellow, which will of course feed into Corpse Mirror. For the most part, it does have potential into the future, as it will be able to create a lot of yellow if you were using like a team that, you know, is almost pure yellow in that regard, so maybe some kind of Skull team into the future. But as it currently stands, it doesn't seem like it has enough synergy with anything currently available in Bounty Hunter to be used in future days. So you're pretty much just going to be using it because it has the extra bonus for this Bounty Hunter event, and I'll probably never touch it again until some kind of new meta shows up in Bounty Hunter. It has potential to be good, but just isn't really that good in the current state of the game. If nothing else, you'll be able to go use it for some mana accumulation this week for Corpse Mirror to be able to get its mana just a little bit easier. Next are a bunch of builds we're going to be showing. So first up, we have ourselves a Night Spider build. So we'll go all the way over here, and I'll just find Explore. How about some Sword's Edge? I'm not sure why I always like to click this one, but it is the one I seem to always click on. Anyways, let's go to our team. So we have 3 teams I want to go show. The first one here is a standard Night Spider team. However, of course, it got changed. This is technically standard Night Spider, but of course, Night Spider is not Night Spider anymore. It has a decently different ability. So, of course, here's the first instance of the new gem that ended up coming out technically yesterday. Though you could kind of consider it today, depending on how you look at it. Oh, wow, that is a perfect placement. That could not have been a more perfect placement for that gem, other than also below it. There was only 2 spots on this entire board where that could have happened, and hit one of those 2. But anyways, as you can see, our 25% chance to trigger a... see, that's one of the few instances where it not having its +1 purple was probably more beneficial to have Spider Silk. It's very situational if it gets more or less value that way, but of course, that's the new ability on it. 25% chance to create a web gem at the start of every single turn. And with that, we can now go cast the ability, and it's pretty much just standard team from here. You just keep spamming down your mana, ideally trying to get a pickup on a kill, just using Rope Dart on whatever the biggest threat is, mana cycling over and over again. There's a little bit of a lower chance you'll end up getting your extra turn, as it does seem like these spider gems can replace your purples. So you're already going to have so many spider gems on the board that probably won't end up mattering too much. So end up doing this, go for a bunch of true damage there, end up getting a bunch of mana. As you saw, some of those purples did replace the spider gem, so a little bit of a nerf in that regard to its loop ability, but it is still so insanely good that it barely even matters. We are going to lose our turn here, which is probably going to get us webbed, which is kind of unfortunate. Luckily, a lot of things on our team does have immunity to it, though a lot of our damage sources do not. So that is kind of the main nerf I was talking about earlier, in that a lot of teams that the spider likes to get used in do not want to be webbed. And it is very easy to accidentally get yourself webbed, and if you don't have another way to cleanse, which most of these teams don't have, or if you end up missing, like the spider tends to do from time to time, it can lead to some really weird situations like what we have now, where we kind of just have to depend on boost ratio and stuff like that to actually end up getting the damage down. And of course, we're creating so many web gems that we could barely even do anything for it. So we'll go for a little bit of tap there. Actually, I probably should just focus on doing Rope Dart at this point. But yeah, there's one of the weird things that happen now, where you really got to make sure that you end up getting the loop, as getting down to a situation like this is not ideal at all, and definitely leads to kind of awkward situation as far as this damage output. So while it does gain a bit of benefit now from the little bit of spider gem like you saw at the beginning of the battle, it is probably more of a nerf than it is a buff. Though it does also apply to the enemy, so even though we're having to deal with web, the enemy's also having to deal with web. Though if you're bothering to use this team, you're probably caring more about your speed rather than disabling the enemy's speed, because this isn't really something you'll necessarily have on the defend team, because, you know, AI is not going to use this correctly when you use it as a defend team. So for the most part, it's probably a nerf. But it's still interesting to see. It does allow it to also be used now in web boost ratio teams. So maybe once we get a cool 4th mythic from Zhul'Kari, that can be the replacement for Mother of Darkness, maybe we'll see a huge improvement to a team like this. Because if we get a rogue from there that has a really good ability that can use both purple and blue, while also having green maybe as its other color, or maybe brown, so we have full coverage, something like that would be kind of insane, because you know for sure it's probably going to have that one trait that a lot of them have that's immune to web, immune to mana drain, stuff like that. A lot of those dark elves have, so end up working out pretty well. There's a couple different ones. Does this one have one of those? No, it doesn't. But a lot of those darker elves has that trait immunity that also includes the web immunity. So it'll be interesting to see. So once we can finally get something else than Mother of Darkness here, though, I would say this is probably overall a nerf to Mother of Darkness rather than a buff. As we'll kind of need like a new Zhul'Kari mythic that works really good in synergy with us into the future to really kind of put things back together in a Night Spider team. Anyways, because you do have to keep in mind, also this be rogue, so which is another issue. Because for a Night Spider to fully work, it does have to be a pure rogue team. And this could be a little bit problematic as there aren't too many rogues that are kind of fit that role. But maybe into the future we'll end up getting them. Anyways, Arc Proxy buff. This one's just a pure buff. Literally no way to skip backfire. It's literally 4 lower mana costs. So, yeah, it's just a straight up buff. Of course, that's the thing I was talking about earlier. You got to kill 10 of those per day. You could find them pretty much everywhere, though mostly explore. They occur anywhere where gnomes normally occur. So any of your normal gnome farming locations, you can simply do that. Of course, we do have the issue of when will Thrall get his purple mana? Of course, we do get to still do web. That's a fun little thing. If not mistaken, wasn't it you who ended up getting it? Wait, who was it on this team who ended up getting it then? Wait, was it not you? Who's doing the what? Wait. Oh, it's you. I was like, wait, who on my team's doing it? It's the thing, creating 1 web gem per day thing. I was going to say, nothing on my team got it. That's funny. But yeah, that's that thing's guaranteed 1 per turn that was triggering that. Anyways, let's go convert with our big brown over there. We did end up hitting our extra turn, and of course we go for her alignment, and now she has better access to getting her mana, so you don't have to worry about her not getting mana as often. So of course we do have a backup plan for that. We could still end up using a full mana off of the Archdiva. Not required to have Archdiva on this team, it's just kind of something to hold down the line, especially once we eventually lose this loop. As it's not a pure infinite, of course, it will eventually stop. Though it is a little bit easier to keep it going now that Arc Proxy does not need as much mana. As you can see right there, I don't think we would have had enough mana if this was pre-buff. But now, since she got buffed and has a lower mana cost, well, now she has enough mana to go get her alignment there. And we'd even need to cast the last troop a single time. You could just even put a Leprechaun there or something else if you really want to. And it would work out fine. Hey, we got a 2x chest. Should we go try to Ubistet on 2x chest? Why not? So, of course, Ubistet is in the Soulforge this week. Pretty much the strongest thing available in Soulforge if you're looking to pick up a mythic. So, unfortunately, it does kind of require Rope Dart, and there isn't really an alternative to Rope Dart. So if you don't have Rope Dart, might want to skip on it. However, if you do have Rope Dart... Oh, you know what? I just killed my alignment, though. Wait, that's going to ruin the combo slightly. Okay, we got to set up the combo again. That's a little unfortunate. I've actually... Well, let's set it up again. Gosh, eventually we'll stop killing them so we can actually kill them. Alright, so we do that. There's one really funny thing with Rope Dart, Ubistet, is if you actually end up killing out the enemy, it actually makes your damage worse, not better. Because the whole premise is that you... let's just go show it again. Not that that battle went badly, but it didn't really do the whole double kill premise. So, of course, the main thing you're looking to do, though I guess winning quicker doesn't matter as much, but the main thing that you're trying to do is go for your Rope Dart, go for Ubistet, cycle that again. That's pretty much the whole premise. I am going to take 1 purple here real quick just so we can get a little bit of mana. After the fact is Thrall was 1 mana short, unfortunately, there. A lot of times he will get full mana from the Leprechaun, though, of course, sometimes he doesn't. So we'll go for this, so we'll have our guarantee Thrall, which will most likely to not give us full mana. And then we simply just Rope Dart Ubistet, and that's just the match. And that can be used pretty much anywhere where Rope Dart Ubistet will work. As long as it has enough damage on that second cast to kill, you can use it in anywhere. As long as you have that damage range. Of course, one thing that can make the damage range a little bit better is by metaling it, which actually I don't think I have. I am very considering it, though, especially with how much easier it is, because he does get a little bit of extra damage from being fully metaled, the exact amount being 2, I believe? 4. He gets 4 additional magic damage from being metaled. Theoretically, almost 5 damage, because he does boost ratio at a 1 to 6 based on attack, and he's getting 4 additional attack, meaning he's potentially getting 5 additional damage range from being upgraded. Guaranteed 4 with potentially a 5th based on if that 4 attack actually reaches a extra value or not, as every 6 attack gives him 1 additional damage, and 4 attack would bring him 2/3 of the way to doing that, though if you already had the other 2, it would bring him all the way to doing that. And he's getting about 4 or 5 extra damage onto his cast range from being fully metaled, which is worth considering as he needs to get that kill to be able to do his thing. If he's out of kill range, they can't be used. So that brings his kill range a little bit wider, so you can use him in more situations throughout the game. And potentially a mythic worth considering. As you can see, it's pretty quick. Not one of the quickest things in the game, but still in the higher range of quickness. And definitely a fun little build to try if you want to kind of switch it up compared to what you're already using. But anyways, guys, that was it. Gosh, that was a long weekly video. 49 minutes. I think this might be one of the longest weekly videos we ever did. But there's a lot going on this week. We got a world event. We got a Guild Wars going on. We have a Zhul'Kari Kingdom Pass. We have a Zhul'Kari Legends Reborn. We have new Mythic coming this Friday. We have Bounty Hunter this Friday. We have the Crinkle Mist thing still you can claim your points for. We still have the thing that we're doing tonight. We'll be doing all the Chapter 8 tasks for the current campaign. In doing so, we'll be going over the Empress, which is technically coming out tonight if you have the Expanded Pass. So we'll be going over that tonight at our standard 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time stream. This is actually a tarot card that is extremely relevant, as it's actually the strongest tarot card ever made. It's basically Emperor, but it has a 1-to-1 based on its magic, and gives it all that stats to your last slot rather than the first. So you could put something that really benefits from a lot of magic in last slot and kind of just go crazy from there. Not the strongest thing in the game, but as far as tarot cards are concerned, is arguably the strongest tarot card they've ever made. And I'll be going over that tonight. It's one of the few tarot cards that is actually worth having. But anyways, guys, I believe that's a rundown on everything. All the teams, all 10 teams are in the description below if you want to copy paste any of them, as well as pinned comments. I hope you all have a wonderful 2023. Definitely feel free to leave a like on this video, as it helps out a lot and is greatly appreciated. And we're still going to be getting that Mythic tier list up. We'll be up in the next few days or so, and we'll have that all ready to go. Anyways, guys, have a wonderful new year. Catch you guys later. Thanks for watching the video, and especially if you stayed the whole 50 minutes, gosh. And I'll catch you guys later. Let me know if you have as well in the comment section. I'm really curious how many of you are interested in a 50-minute video. I guess that's kind of biased to ask now rather than near the end, because if you like long videos, wait till the Mythic tier list comes out. Anyways, catch you guys later. Thanks for watching the video, and have a wonderful new year. Goodbye, everyone.